you hate the thought of working past 55 or 60? Do you hate not being able to live the life you deserve today? Do you hate not knowing what your financial future looks like? It's time to stop doing what you hate. Here's your host, Mr. Harold Green.
Hello, everybody. This is Harold Green of Braintree Wealth Management, and it is time to stop doing what you hate. Hope you're having a fantastic day, an even better week, and an even better month, and an even better year. Like I said before in one of my shows, I don't like just talking just for the sake of talking. I like to live and then live to talk to you folks about, what I've lived through and what I've seen in the past couple of weeks or whatnot. But today, I have a little bit of an interesting show for you, because the last show was about mental barriers to making money. And I kind of want to stay on that just a little bit. But first, I want to tell you a little bit about my week. Today's Sunday for me. And I think I had a pretty decent week. And one of the highlights, or some of the highlights of my week, were just getting texts from people sending me like photos of them traveling and going all over the world and stuff, and saying stuff like, yo, thanks for funding this. Without your hard work, none of this would have been possible, and stuff like that. And, that just melts my heart, because it's not necessarily me doing the hard work, but they did the hard work in trusting me, and then having faith in my abilities, and then having faith in what I've told them, to just stick it through and to see it through. And I'm excited about that. And as I tell my clients in my market minute, I don't want to just stack cash, so you can get fat and rich and not do anything with the money. I want to see you enjoy your life. So when people call me and say, yeah, I need, 10 grand for this or 20 grand for that, I mean, it's not a big deal. And honestly, the reason why they're calling me and asking me for it is because of the system that we have in place, and that you don't want to keep too much money sitting in places where it's not doing anything for you. Some people will say, well, I'm just saving this money over here because I'm going to take a trip. Well, depending on how we invest the money, you could take 2 or 3 trips, depending on the season and the time. Now, all investments do carry risk of loss. Go do your due diligence. Past performance is no indicator of future results. You have to understand your risk tolerance and all of that good stuff. And when I get those messages, man, I get excited, and it makes me look forward to Monday again when the market opens. And so on the weekend, sometimes I'm doing my research. I'm like getting my game face on and digging a little deeper and seeing what else I can find out there. Because as I said in my last market minute, you want a hired assassin. You don't want somebody just sitting there massaging your situation. You want somebody who's going to give it everything they got. And I think that me and the people on my team, I think we do that. So I just wanted to share a little bit about that. And so I want to get in today's show. And the title is Financial Ignorance. It's what you know, not necessarily who you know. It's what you know, not necessarily how you feel. And I want to get into it. So are you ready? 1, 2, 3, let's get it. Now, the Bible talks about, there's a scripture that says, my people perish and suffer for lack of knowledge. It does not say for lack of opportunity. It does not say my people perish and suffer for lack of money. It doesn't say my people perish and suffer for lack of food. It doesn't say my people perish and suffer for lack of health, or lack of, financial stability, or lack of anything other than my people perish and suffer for lack of knowledge. And that's a very powerful thing. I think we should always be getting knowledge, or work with people who are always seeking and getting knowledge, always seeking for something better, always seeking for the new and next brightest idea that's coming around the corner. Because as the group Expose said, seasons change. Seasons change. Yep. Seasons change, and they do. And a lot of time you're sitting there with outdated information, outdated knowledge, and why didn't you do anything different? And the season has changed on you. Why did you not do anything different? Well, you know what I hear a lot of people say? Well, I don't feel like this, or I feel like that. And in today's world, I see more people caught up on how they feel more than anything in the world. They just want to feel good. I want to be able to sleep at night. I want to be able to do, I want to feel a certain way. I want to feel happy. I don't want to feel sad. Not everyone, but a lot of people are really caught up on their feelings. I feel depressed. Now, I'm not saying ignore that stuff, but I'm telling you, more and more people are living through their feelings versus their their faith and their knowledge. And that's very important. Now, I always harp on the 3%. How do we get you to the 3%? 3% of the people in the country will retire with enough to live on, the other 97% will not. I'm just going to keep beating that until the cows come home, if there's any cows left. I'm just going to keep ringing that bell because I want you in the top 3%. I want you to be a blessing not only to yourself and your kids, but to the people that are around you. I want you in that top 3%. But to get to the 3%, you got to know more. And I've heard it said something like this: you're only going to get promoted to your, to the level of your competence, right? Or one level above that. I don't know how the saying goes, but you're going to max out. And unless you grow and learn more, you're going to max out. And you ever heard the saying that, they must know something that I don't know? They must know something that I don't know because look at how they're living. Look at what they're doing. How can they afford to do this? How can they do that? They must be doing something that I'm. What are they doing that I'm not doing? I hear this stuff all the time, and I'm going to tell you the biggest secret why people, when they find out what it is that others are doing, I'm going to tell you why they don't do it. Yes, they do. They know more. And what is it that they know that you don't? But it's not just what you know, it's what do you believe? And that's very important. What do you believe? A lot of people don't believe that using the stock market is a legitimate thing to make money. They don't believe that. They don't think it's right. Some people think money, I heard this said a lot. Money is the root of evil, right? Money is the root of evil. No. It says for the love of money is the root of all sorts of evil. It's the love of money that is the beginning and the seed of evil. It is the love of money, not money in and of itself. I've heard this quoted to me over and over and over again. And when you start to repeat something over and over again, it gets into your mind and then you start to believe it and then you start to act on it. That's insane. A lot of times people believe that it's rigged. I believe the market can be manipulated at times, but overall, it's a financial system, just like the voting system, just like the medical system, just like the education system. You ever heard somebody say, "I'm not putting my money in the banks because the banks are rigged. They're crooks. Just pay me in cash." Like what? Good luck with that, buddy. I mean, Social Security is not going to be much, right? I see people doing that stuff and getting paid under the table, man. It's stupid. And then Social Security come around, he's 65, and they ain't got nothing to show for it. They ain't saved cash. There's nowhere they spent it. I'm not going to the doctor because, what if they make me sicker than what I already am? And they're just trying to make me sicker so they can give me more medicine and get paid for it. I mean, just, you wouldn't fathom the crazy things that people believe. I'm not going to college because, what's the point? A lot of people get college degrees and they get jobs that are different than what they went to college for. Yeah, that may be true, but is that an excuse for you? I'm not going to church because every time I go to church, all they do is they take up offerings and they just want money. That's all they do. I'm not hiring an advisor because I got to pay fees and what if they don't perform and stuff like that? Like, what is it that you believe? So I want to kind of go through some common knowledge that we all know, right? This show is going to be so basic, but I'm going to tell you the secret why people don't act on what they believe, right? Common knowledge. Now, you all know that over time, if you invest money and you put it in the proper things in the market, it will do well over time. Many of us know that. Many of us even believe it, but there's a reason why we won't act on it. We all know that buying a home, putting the money in the house, right? Paying a mortgage, we all know that over time, the house is going to appreciate. We know that. But why don't we act on that? Some of us, anyway. Some people say, I just rather rent. Now, sometimes renting will make sense. And I've talked about that in some other shows. But I'm talking about the thing that gets people not to act on what they believe, right? Now, I don't get too complicated with this, But again, we talked about investing. We always talk about investing and we always talk about generating rates of returns and so on and so forth. I want to talk a little bit about the rapid retire financial planning process. If I can segue into that, cash reserve system, income generation, cash flow management. And this is a very big thing. We all know that we're supposed to be operating on some kind of budget, right? But why is it that we will not sit down and figure out what our expenses are? My wife and I, we do this all the time. This is what we do. I don't care how much money I make, I'm going to know everything that comes in and everything that goes out. Either I'm tracking it or she's tracking it or some kind of somebody is tracking what we're spending, right? But there's a reason why people won't track what they spend. No, this is not for any one particular person. This is a generality that I find very common. And it's one of the things that I have people do before they come in and sit down with me for the most part. I want them to understand what their inflows and their outflows look like, right? But some people just will not do that. They're just, I don't know if they're, well, I can tell you what it is, and I'll tell you what it is in a second. Now, I want to talk also about paying off debt. And one of the things that we always talk about is leverage and how to leverage your assets. And depending on who you are, you may be a sophisticated investor, you may be a unsophisticated investor, but you know that leveraging, depending on the situation that you're in, leveraging your assets is a good thing to do, depending on your situation. But why is it that some people don't feel comfortable leveraging their assets? This all boils down into one particular thing. Why do people pay for college that they know they can't afford? Why do people send their kids to schools that they can't afford? Why do they buy cars that they can't afford? Why do they, this is crazy. Why do they marry the person that they maybe know that they shouldn't marry? Their head says one thing, but there's one other thing that says, you know what? You got to go with me. You got to go with me on this. Sometimes people will call me when the market is really bad. They know they shouldn't call me and tell me this, but they call me and they tell me anyway. They say, "You know what? I don't like what you're doing right now. I don't like the way the market is acting right now. I want you to do this instead." What is the one thing that causes them to do that? You are shortchanging your success. And when I looked at people's portfolio over the last 3 or 4 months, and I looked at the ones who said, "Harold, you know what? Look, man, I got your back. I know this looks bad right now. I hear everything that's going on out there, but you know what? I got your back. And you know what? I know you're looking out for my best interest. And I'm going to ride with you on this. All right. I'm riding with you. I trust you because I know we're going to come out better on the other side." What was different about them? Why did they not act on, say, an emotion or a feeling? What was the difference with them? I'll tell you what that was in a little bit. And so I'm telling you all this because I want to challenge you a little bit. I'm going to challenge you as to what do you think it is, or why do you think it is that you won't believe, right? And then why is it that you won't do what you know that you're supposed? What is it? What's stopping you? What's holding you back? And I'm going to challenge you to deal with this one little thing in a minute, because when you truly believe and you have it deep down inside of your heart, then you take action on that belief, and it's going to have to come by knowledge, right? Knowledge, I would say experience. I can teach people a lot of things, but this one thing that I have a hard time getting people to overcome is their emotions, their emotions and their feelings. They don't do something is because of how they feel. Well, hey, yo, we need to get this done. Well, I don't feel like it right now. No, legitimately, you could be straight up sick, right? You could be dog tired. That's understandable, right? We all have periods of times where we need to take downtime, where we need to take rest. But other times when we know, right? The Bible says it is sin to him who knows what to do and does not do it, right? And I'm like, I'm cheap guilt man here when it comes to certain things. Like I know when it comes to caloric intake, I know I need to reduce my calories a little bit more. And sometimes I'm good about it, sometimes not. I'm not about it. But if I think of everything in the context of, hey, he who knows what to do and does not do it, he or she who knows what to do and does not do it. Like, let me ask you this question. Do you think it's automatically going to get done? You may think, well, I'll get around to it someday. I'll get around to it someday. I'll get around to it someday. And I'll give you a straight up example. Some days I'm sitting here and I've been like 5 o'clock, been up since like 5 o'clock. Sometimes I know you guys can't understand what I'm saying because I talk so fast, right? I've been up since like 5 o'clock and I'm like anxious and I'm like, yo, all right, I want to get it. I want to get it. I want to get it. And I get up and I start working and I start working. I start researching. I start trading. I start trading. And then I get sideswiped with some stuff. People will throw stuff at me and like, it'll get me off guard a little bit. But at the end of the day, I'm tired, right? I'm tired. And sometimes I don't eat. I'll drink like protein throughout the day and just, do my workout, drink my protein and just get my vitamins in and stuff. And usually when I'm sitting down trading, I don't like to sit there and work on a full stomach because I feel like it affects my brain and I get like sleepy or whatever. So I don't eat a lot during the day when I work. I just like to I like to get it done. I like to eat after I'm done. Okay. My reward is like lunch or something. I'll eat something when I'm done. And so I'll get done and then I'll sit there and be like, okay, and then I'll start doing more research. And then next thing you know, it makes me interested in learning a little bit more about something and digging a little bit deeper instead of me saying, you know what, I gave it a lot today. Why don't I just, why don't I call a lid on it, put a lid on it, like shut it down for the day, and just go do something, some me time and, tune into my feelings and, look at, watch something on TV or YouTube or Netflix or whatnot. Like, yeah, I did a solid day's work. I gave it a lot, right? And so this thing will come to me and say, well, check this out. Well, here's some information for you. I'll come across something. It's like, why don't you dig a little bit deeper into that? Next thing you know, I'm finding a trade. I'm finding a perfect scoop and score trade where I'm making clients money. I mean, I did this the other day, and in 2 or 3 days, I think we made like 27% on a trade. It was just insanely stupid. The stock has since crashed again, but we made a lot of money on that trade. And those opportunities, they're there. They're presenting themselves to me all the time in some form or the other. But you know what stops me from finding them? It's either how I feel that day. Like I may feel a little bit sluggish, or I may feel a little bit depressed, a little bit. Like you guys say, depressed. Yeah, I sometimes I do get, I get a little emotional. You know what I mean? Like I go through stuff, and people do piss me off. Don't get me wrong. I am human, right? But when I brush that stuff aside and I focus on what it is that I'm after, yeah, in the beginning it's hard, but after a while it gets a little easier. It gets a little easier. When I'm down a couple of 100,000 a day in my portfolio, my personal portfolio, or close to it, is it frustrating at times? Yes. But those are the days where I make sure I have some cash and I'm looking at that, reassessing that position and saying, is today the day I go add more? Because sometimes when I add more, I mean, I could be up 300% in the next couple of weeks just because I didn't act on my emotion and say, oh my God, I thought this thing was going to do this, but it's doing that instead. And, I have to sit there and look at what's going on and not get ahead of myself, not get into my feelings, not get into my emotions, not get into the situation where I say, well, I'm going to do this because, I want to sleep good at night. Yeah, I think having a great night's sleep is important. But sometimes I think that we over obsess about certain things that we shouldn't obsess about. Sometimes we let problems become bigger than they really are. And sometimes things aren't problems. They're just, I guess, situations that become problems. And we don't want that. Now, over time, these things will resolve themselves if we stay with our plan. But if we don't stick with our plan and we get off track because of how we feel about something or the other, then it becomes a big problem. And I'm here to help walk you through that, And so if you're out there and you know that the reason why you're not getting ahead is because of your feelings and your emotions and things like that, let's go through this process and figure out how we can get you in the 3%. Let's go through this process and figure out, okay, what is it that you need to do to get quote unquote ice water in your veins? You know what I mean? So that no matter what comes up, you're going to persevere, you're going to stick it through, and you're going to come out better on the other side. What is it that we need to do? What is the process we need to go through? Now, here's what I'm going to tell you. It's one thing to perish for lack of knowledge. It's another thing to suffer for knowledge that you know that you won't implement. That's a whole another thing. So if you know that there's something you ought to be doing and you're not doing it, I want to kind of talk to you about that too and find out, okay, you know what you're after. You know what it's going to take to get it. But what is it that's stopping you from achieving your results? All right. So go through my referral process, check out the website, do the homework, Just start taking the steps to get to where you need to be. Because I'm going to tell you straight up, you got to do this stuff while you're young. If you're not 70 yet, I consider you still, relatively young in your 60s, still mentally bright, acute, aware. You can think, you can strategize, you can do things. If you don't do this stuff while you're young, by the time you get older, you probably will have no choice in the matter, no say in the matter. What care home you go to, your kids are going to decide everything for you. The lawyers are going to decide. The CPA is going to decide. People are going to decide things for you, and you have literally no control. And the worst situation to be in is to be physically unable, but mentally sharp as a tack. But you're physically unable to do things, and others have to do things for you. And already you can see yourself at odds with their choices and their decisions. So why don't we work and set this stuff up just the way you want it now, so that you're always in control and you're not going to have to be led around by somebody else's feelings, somebody else's emotions. Why don't we get this done right now? So check out the show notes, go through the process, get on my calendar, and let's see if we can make this happen for you. And until next time, everybody, 1, 2, 3, let's get it, even if you don't feel like it.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.